Hi, my name is Mark Biernath. I'm an estate planning attorney here in the Atlanta area. In this section, we're going to take a closer look at what some of the requirements are for completing a power of attorney. This would apply to both the financial power of attorney and the healthcare power of attorney, or the Georgia Advanced Directive for Healthcare. We're also going to look at some of the limitations or downsides of using a power of attorney if you have a child who has limited or diminished capacity. It's critical to understand the issues so that you can decide what would be the most appropriate way to handle decision making for your adult incapacitated child. So, in order to do a power of attorney, you must be over the age of 18. So you must have the ability to enter into contracts. Over the age of 18. Must have capacity. You got to be able to understand what you're doing. It must be an independent choice. And this is where parents sometimes get into trouble. Because I'll have parents say, oh, I just put that in front of him and he signed it. Okay. But that was not his independent choice. And what exactly is an independent choice is, you know, if you tell your child this is something that's important and you should do it, I call that employing some parental wisdom and persuasion. Others might call that unduly influencing his decision-making ability. Does any one of us actually independently decide, you know what, if I'm incapacitated, I better have a power of attorney in place? Or does someone tell you about some of the bad things that can happen if you don't do this, and you feel persuaded to do it? So somewhere between those two lines, we make an independent choice. What I like to do with clients when I'm meeting with their kids, so long as they reasonably understand what's going on and can express to me that this is something they want to do, I feel comfortable drafting the documents and having them sign it. I warn parents, though, that some doctor might say, he doesn't understand this. There's no way he could have possibly understood what he was doing here. This is not a valid power of attorney. Then you're back to where you would have been otherwise, having to go to court. So if it's possible, if it's reasonable that this person may be able to understand what they're doing, I don't have a problem with doing powers of attorney, but, you know, I have an ethical obligation to at least, you know, find out do they understand things on a basic level, and can they express to me that this is something they want to do. Simply saying, just draft it and I'll put it in front of him and tell him to sign it. The signature itself is not the volitional act. They have to actually want to grant somebody the powers to do it. I've had some people tell me, well, he really wanted to sign his name, so that was his volitional act. That doesn't work. And it must be in writing. Now, technically, powers of attorney don't have to be in writing, but if you're going to use this to help somebody who's incapacitated, then it must be in writing. And some powers may need to be notarized. So it's not simply something that you can just, download and print out and have to sign. A notary has to witness the signatures, and that notary is also part of the process of, does this person know what they're doing? And so that's one of the kind of built-in safeties, that at least the person is able to say, yes, this is something I want to do. And if a notary doesn't believe it's a volitional act, the notary has the obligation to say, I can't notarize this document. Limitations using powers of attorney. Powers of attorney does not remove any right. So whatever rights an adult has, they continue to have. You cannot disavow or avoid any contract that the individual enters into, simply because you have power of attorney. So if you have a child that likes to go online, and for instance might want to sign up for an online college course, this is an actual example of what has happened, and was able to charge $8,000 to mom's credit card to pay for this college course, that there was no possible way this child was going to be able to do that college course online. And in that situation, because they did not have guardianship, and child did have access to the credit card, that parents did have to pay for the course. However, they were able to negotiate a lower amount. But these are the areas you got to be concerned about. Does your child like to watch QVC? And when they say QVC is online shopping, on TV, cable shopping, and when they say there's only 22 left and you got to call now and you won't be able to get this anymore, does your child feel the urge to pick up the phone and call and say, I need one of those? If that is a concern, then powers of attorney are not going to be able to protect you against that. There's some individuals who have disabilities, but they have very strong cognitive skills in certain areas. I know one of my clients' kids just has to see a number once and it's locked in their memory. And they've got a hold of the wallet and memorized all the credit card numbers. And I mean, could just every single number in that wallet was memorized, even the serial numbers. And even the serial numbers on the dollar bills that were in there, just seared into the memory of this child. And, the child's been shopping with them and saw how the credit card goes through the machine and, recognized that, hey, these numbers mean something, and was able to start buying stuff. If that is a risk, a power of attorney is not going to protect you. These are things where you got to look at your family situation and determine what's the right way to protect yourself. But if you're relying on powers of attorney, that is not a way to disavow or avoid a contract. Powers of attorney can be revoked. This is more a concern in a mental illness type of environment where while the individual is not suffering a crisis moment, enters into a power of attorney, says, yes, mom, you can help make decisions, then goes into a crisis period, gets admitted to a hospital, and during that hospital admission tells the doctors, I don't want you talking to my mom anymore. Mom cannot present the power of attorney and say, hey, I can talk to you. The doctor has to follow what that individual says and could even say, look, he's revoked this permission and we have to follow what he says. So those are some of the limitations. Another limitation, like I said, a bank may decide not to honor the power of attorney. What we find with the Advanced Directive for Healthcare, most doctors are so ecstatic to see that you have a power of attorney that they're not going to say, we're not going to accept it, we don't think it's valid. But we do see that with banks. Banks will routinely say, either it's too old, done too long ago, doesn't specifically address the transaction you're trying to do. We see a lot of that from banks. Usually from doctors, they're just happy to see, there's somebody they can talk to. Power of attorney is also good evidence of capacity. So let's say your child signed a power of attorney giving you the authority to make decisions over different kinds of things, and then went online and ordered the $8,000 college course, and this actually winds up in court. The attorney for the college is going to ask, do you have any powers of attorney? Well, yes, here. In fact, that'll be done in a document request long before you get to court. And that is going to be piece of evidence number one that you think your child has the capacity to enter into contracts. Because a power of attorney is a contract. And if you helped prepare this contract for your child and had your child sign that contract, and now you're saying your child doesn't have the capacity to sign a contract, something's wrong here. And then the infamous line that lawyers like to say, so are you lying now or were you lying then? Either way, you can't answer that question. And that's where lawyers want to get you. So as you're evaluating whether this is something you need to do, either go powers of attorney or go guardianship route, keep all of these factors in mind and look at your child. What is your child possibly going to do?
In this section, we looked at what the requirements are for entering into a power of attorney, as well as some of the downsides as it relates to an incapacitated adult. In the next section, we're going to take a brief look at revocable living trusts and then move into a discussion on guardianship in Georgia. Please join us.